not.
It wouldn't be. Hello,
we are live.
Hello, we are live.
GTFO.
Hello, welcome to GTFO. It's Friday. We're all a little bit overexcited. Also, we haven't promoted this because stupid Facebook won't let us do anything anymore on our pages because they've changed all the algorithms. So I couldn't create an event anyway, and I gave up and had a paddy. So here we are with an unpromoted, off-the-cuff GTFO, and we're going to talk about how to define your target audience. Now, normally we do these as a sort of top 5 tips to help you do it, and I have sort of got top 5 tips, but actually I don't think they're very good. So
let's just chat it out.
Let's just have a conversation. Yeah, let's just talk about it. So before we move into the very, very exciting subject about how to define your target audience, Hannah, what's your name and where'd you come from?
My name's Hannah and I'm from Grow Traffic.
You're also from near Sheffield, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. Well, geographically, I'm from near Sheffield, but does anyone care?
No,
I do, because I was going to ask what the weather's like over in Sheffield.
Oh, okay. It's overcast, windy, a bit drizzly, a bit wet. It's cardigan. It's cardigan weather. And as a bonus fact, if I was to go on a reality TV show, I would pick Married at First Sight.
Oh, would you? For the holiday, yeah. I mean, yes. Well, and the drama, quite frankly.
Yeah, and all the booze that they get at the dinner party.
They do get treated quite nicely. So Storm Ian hasn't found its way to you yet, then, has he not?
I don't know what that is. No.
Is that what this is?
This is Storm Ian. Yes.
I just thought it was a bit blustery and wet.
No. So Simon Daly, what's your name? Where'd you come from? What is the weather like where you are?
Oh, what reality show would you go on? Love Island.
What reality show? My name's Simon Daly. I am a director here at Grow Traffic. I'm currently residing not far from the centre of Bacup, about a mile outside. The weather is blustery, rainy, and apparently that's because of Storm Ian. A storm I've just learned about.
And what reality show would you go on if you were to go on one?
Now that you've said Married at First Sight, that's the only one I can think of.
That's the only one you know.
Apprentice or Ready Steady Cook.
Oh, The Apprentice sounds good, doesn't it? What's that new one that they've got that's a bit like The Apprentice on Channel 4? Does anyone know?
The PM one, How to Be the PM?
No, different one, but that one looks good as well.
Okay.
I don't watch a lot of
reality
TV shows, do I?
No. Okay, well, moving on then. My name is Rachel Weinhold, also from Bacup, also just about to be hit with, well, I think we are being hit with Storm Ian, to be honest. It looks like it's trying to sleet out there. And the reality show that I would go on would be Big Brother, simply because we've watched it for such a long time. And quite frankly, I would love to have 3 months locked in a house where I don't have to do any cleaning or organising or cooking or sorting out of school trips or anything else. Or
your head would get pecked. You'd be
right.
I'd take that. I'd take that as an exchange. That'd be fair.
I take it all back what I said before. I'd go on Castaway. You know that
a good one.
I'd go on Castaway.
Good one.
And set up a new community, have like acres of land on a little island away from anybody else. Bloody brilliant. That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. I'm glad that we've had this conversation because in a way, doing an Eddie Izzard talking about the Church of England type joke, this reminds me of what you have to do when you're determining your target audience, because you think about this is what Jesus would do if he was going into the desert. He'd tart himself up a bit. Anyway, that's a very in joke for people of the 90s, children of the 90s. If you're not of the 90s, if you're determining your target audience, it is a little bit like thinking, well, who are we and what do we do and what fits us best, and therefore who would our target audience be and where are they likely to be? First of all, why does it matter? Why do people need to define who their target audience is? Somebody tell me that.
Because it informs all the communications that you put out, who you advertise to, how you sell it, how you sell yourself. It's absolutely vital.
And when you talk about sort of how you're selling yourself and who you're talking to, you know, we're obviously going to focus on digital marketing fronts in this bit, but it informs what you're doing everywhere, doesn't it? You know, if you're going to start doing PR, it will determine what publications you're going to go in. If you're doing, you know, networking, it will determine which business networking meetings you're going to go to, because who else is in the room. You know, as I've already said, digital marketing, what social media platforms are you going to be on, what conferences are you going to speak at, what podcasts are you going to guest on. You know, if you haven't defined your target audience, you know, you just have a sort of scattergun approach, and it's not very effective. Dali, any thoughts on why it matters? Oh, sorry, go on, Hannah.
So sorry, Hannah, what were you going to say?
No, go for it.
I was just going to say probably it's best to define what a target audience is as well.
Well, that was my next question, but go for it.
I thought this was an informal chat without any questions. Now I feel like I don't know what the questions are.
No, well, I have questions, but they're all in my head, and you don't know them until I ask them.
Okay, well, while you two have this domestic, I think the other important thing as well about figuring out who your target audience are is that it stops you, like you say, going scattergun, going too broad. So, like, it's even if like your services can be used or enjoyed by everyone is not an easily marketable audience. So how are you going to get out to everyone? So if you kind of segment down your audience, then it makes it a lot easier to see where you're getting the successes and where to focus your attention and your budget.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing as well is, you know, people think, obviously, if you're doing a leaflet campaign or you're getting a magazine article published, whatever, you know, there's a cost associated with that. People tend to think like with social media, there isn't a cost, and even if you're doing it yourself, though, you know, there is, because it's your time that it takes to create the graphics and craft the content and put it out there and you know, talk to people and all the rest of it. So there's a cost to all of it, and if you are just going scattergun approach, you know, a really broad message trying to appeal to everybody, you by default are going to appeal to nobody, and then your time and your effort and everything else is wasted. So by honing down your target audience, it just makes you that little bit more effective. So Simon Daly, next question. We know why it's important to define your target audience. What is a target audience, and will a business have just one?
So your target, no, you can have target audiences, but if you think about the way that you work out who your target customer is, if you like, there's kind of three levels of targeting. There's your target market, which Hannah was talking about before, where if you produce something that everybody in the country could use, I don't know, if you sell water or whatever it would be.
Toilet roll.
Yeah, toilet roll. There we go. Everyone in the country is potentially a customer for those types of products, but they're not all going to buy them. They're a customer or a user. That's your target market. So then it's a case of thinking about who buys them and who's able to buy them as well as use them. So if you think about somebody like us that sells kind of digital marketing services, well, our target market might be anybody in business, you know, any marketing professional, any
business owner,
and then your target audience will be made up of that's your target market. Mm-hmm. So that's already narrowed it down. That's your target market, and then from your target market, you're going to make a target audience, which is going to say that from that target market of business owners and marketing professionals, which specific industries they're in. So that's and kind of what do they look like in those industries? Not just what industries that they're in, but who specifically in those industries are able to actually afford your product and use your product, and all that type of thing needs to go into it. And then the layer below that is the segmentation, where you say our target markets, our target audiences, sorry, and then what age groups they are, you know, segment them out into age groups or into locations, geography, different types of demographics, to get more granular campaigns.
Okay, so just to sort of summarize there, and using Grow Traffic as an example, so our target market, yes, it's going to be all businesses, but actually what we need to do to determine who our ideal customers are and therefore our target audience is work out, well, which of those do we actually want to work with? So which of those are likely to want our services and employ them? Which of us are likely to be a good sort of fit for us in terms of the amount of money that they want to spend and the activities that they want to do? Which of them is likely to be a good fit for us culturally? And we'll come on to talk about all of these. So first things first, then, where do you start? Where, if let's say you've got a business that potentially anybody, I mean, we are a B2B business, potentially any business wants SEO services. Where do you start defining that down? Where's the first place to go
to? It depends on how you want to do it. Really, the kind of age-old advice is always to start with the product or the service and then work back from there. However, I think in reality, most businesses will look at their existing customer base and say, what works? What's a good fit in terms of the types of businesses that we tracked already? Which ones don't work as well, so we can get rid of those and then start concentrating. And also kind of come up with a hypothesis based on the customers that you've worked with previously, the ones that work well and not, and say, actually, we think that this type of customer, maybe in this industry, or who operate in a certain way, are much more would be much more suited to our product and service in the future. So we're gonna try and shift our customer base by shifting the target audience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's just start with existing customers then, Hannah, because this is a process that we went through with Grow Traffic, isn't it, when we were working with Edge Hill University, and we started with our existing and previous customers. And Dali says, work out what works. What did we do? How did we do that?
I think as well, so work out what works in terms, if they're your existing customers, then obviously something has worked because you've sold to them. So where did they come from? Where did they go? Where did they come from? Not an idea. No, yeah. So where did the lead come from? I think if you can start putting some data against where these people came from, with the inbound, with the outbound, did they come through social? Did they come through the phone? Did you chase them down from the bus stop? Where did they come from? And then start to think about commonalities between them. So what do they have in common? Is it that their size? Is it their sector? Is it the person that makes the decision? Is it the values? Is it their budget? There will be sort of commonalities between them. So a good idea is to start mapping that out. On a big piece of paper or some post-it notes, because we all love post-it notes.
Yes, we love a big A3 piece of paper and some post-it notes, don't we?
We do. And then also think about where they diverge as well. So what's different about them, and then that will stop you kind of making assumptions. So as an example, at Grow Traffic, we thought, and also just go easy on yourself. You might not get this right, and it will take the more customers you have, the more marketing you do, the more data you'll gather, and so the more you'll be able to refine it. But don't kind of hold fire to wait till you've got the perfect target audience that you can really qualify. You need to just kind of try these things and see what happens. But to go back to my example, we thought for a long time we were targeting a specific sector. And then we realized through kind of interrogating the data, question our assumptions, that actually it's the business model rather than the sector. So the sector doesn't matter to us, who we work with. What works best for us is, are they on a subscription-based service? Are they run on monthly revenue, or are they run on one-off projects? So
that's at the moment, that's still kind of our working hypothesis, isn't it? I think data, we will like every business should do, kind of reassess that in 6 months' time, a year's time, whatever it might be, and work out, were we right, were we wrong? What does it mean? We'll probably tighten up which sectors. We'll be able to then say, yeah, it is a subscription model, or it's a retainer model, or a rental model, whatever kind of falls in there, but don't target these industries or these businesses. and it will enable us to much. It's always going to be a learning process, I think.
Absolutely. And I think as well, like, be really clear on who the decision maker is that you're talking to. Like, try and boil it down at some point to a role or a person. You know, if you're selling toilet roll, yes, everybody uses it, but the chances are that a certain demographic are going to buy it. If you're selling health and safety courses, the end user is, you know, the workman or whatever, but the purchaser, the decision maker, is often a PA or a training coordinator or a secretary or an office manager. So, you know, think about the process that your buyer will go through to get to your product.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing as well that you know, that's a good summary of how you use your existing customers. But I think one thing to remember as well is taking a look at your previous customers and being really brutally honest with yourself here. And it's quite hard to do this sometimes, isn't it, as a business, to sort of look back objectively and say, okay, these are the customers that we either failed or we fell out with, or they moved on for whatever reason, you know, and being really honest about what was the reason that they moved on. Was that because they weren't a good fit for us? Was it because we weren't delivering perhaps what they expected? I mean, that whole process has multiple benefits when you're looking at your entire business processes and systems. But if we think about it from an ideal customer point of view, it can really help you eliminate people. Like you were saying, Hannah, we'd made an assumption that it was a specific sector. And actually, when we look back at some of our data, we realized actually that doesn't matter. That's not the thing. So that enabled us to then plan going forwards. So I think it's, you know, businesses often have this let's move on, let's move forward, let's look forward approach, and actually looking back can be really beneficial for this process, can't it?
Yeah, and I know as well, sorry,
go on.
I was gonna say, like, I can't highlight it enough, like, watch your assumptions, watch your, like, unconscious bias. I was working with a client once. They sold curtains, like custom made curtains, and they thought that their target audience were kind of over 60 based on who they were going out and speaking to. But actually, when we looked at the data from who was accessing their materials and their website, it was like 30 to 40-year-olds. So, you know, there could be a bit of a clash there, though, that's just because that's how they were acting. Like, the 30 to 40-year-olds were using the tech, and the older audience were using, you know, kind of tradition, the phone, or like traditional market, you know, yellow pages or whatever. So just be really careful with your assumptions.
I think that's a really, really good point. And I had this with a client a while ago. They did, they were a travel agent. They sold very, very bespoke holidays, you know, high-end, expensive holidays. And they said to me that their target audience was older couples, retired couples. They had a lot of money, a lot of time on their hands. They were going on these trip of a lifetime holidays that they'd saved up for years. So that was who they thought their target audience was, these kind of couples who were retired. And actually, when we looked at the website data, it was much younger people, you know, people planning their honeymoons, people about to get married. And so but they said, but that's not who comes in the shop. It's like, no, but they're selling, they're buying in a different way. And but as you said, Hannah, maybe they're just the people that are more tech savvy. You know, the older couples are more likely to walk in the shop. The younger peoples are more likely to go online and be doing the research and whatever. So it's important that you don't just take who is directly in front of you as the key definer of your demographic, because actually you could then exclude a lot of potential customers, couldn't you?
Or even, like, so to qualify that down even more, like, don't take one channel as the beacon of knowledge.
Yeah.
So think about all the different channels.
Dali, what were you going to say before?
I was going to say as well, when you're analysing your existing data, you've also got to be really honest about. You said it before, Rachel, about being honest, and just be honest with yourself about your business as well, and the types of customers that you've been attracting, the reasons that they don't stay, just because they haven't been a good fit in the past doesn't mean that your business won't evolve and they will be a good fit in the future. You know, that there's also an opportunity there to learn how to make the business work in a way that suits those types of companies.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's you're leading us on actually to the next point, as you very often do, Simon Daly. But yeah, you know, the starting point, as we've said, is basically who are your customers now? Who are you talking to? Either physically in your shop, on the phone, through your website, through a brochure, whatever it might be. But who are they now? Then you've got to start thinking about, okay, well, who do we want the customers to be? Are they the right customers for us? Or maybe you've got a new product, a new service, you're rolling something out, maybe you've not tried it before. So where do you start if you want to be a little bit more sort of proactive and think about your potential audience as opposed to the one that you've got now? Oh, silence.
Sorry,
nobody knows.
I didn't know who you were asking that question to. Start with the product. That's the product or service. Especially if you're launching a new product or service, that product or service would fundamentally have been developed to target a specific market or audience. So start there, and then you can break it out. It might be that the product's been designed for a target market. So you understand the target market, but then you're going to make it more specific by creating different target audiences that make marketing more manageable. Even though, and it is just a case of making a hypothesis that you're going to then test. You're going to come up with an idea and test it. Mm. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, Hannah?
Yeah, no, just nothing really to add other than I think that's a really important and again we just can't hammer this home enough. A target audience is a hypothesis, especially when you're first starting out. And with all marketing, it's a case of having an educated guess and chucking something at the wall and seeing what sticks. And so don't be too rigid in who you think your audience is. You know, you can specifically target a market, but accept that your audience might change as you go in. As you go through more data.
How useful is it to look at your competitors? Start with them as a starting point.
It is and it isn't, because if you're looking at your competitors, you've got to understand your product, you've got to understand your audience before you understand who your competitors are. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. So
also as well,
I'd find the competitors based on the understanding of the audience.
I mean, how do you know that your competitors are targeting it right? How do you you wouldn't want to copy your competitors necessarily, but you also wouldn't, because then is there a gap there? But also you don't want to just do the absolute opposite, because is there a reason that they've not targeted a specific audience? I mean, knowing who your competitors are is important, especially in SEO. Knowing who your SERP competitors are is important. But I personally don't see an enormous value in targeting in researching your competitors so thoroughly that you're looking at who they're targeting, unless you do something mega niche and there's only a couple of you. But if it's if you do something that's so saturated that you're trying to carve out a different audience, if you think about supermarkets, for example, there's 5 or 6 big supermarkets and they all have a different audience in a way. Yeah, everyone buys food, and these supermarkets go out to somebody different.
I was just going to say that I've worked at businesses as well where if you were to go onto their website and you were to kind of look at who they were targeting, unless you actually were part of that business and you understood how it worked, you might not realize, you might think that their primary kind of source of customers came from the targeting on the website, where in fact it might be channel-based, partnership marketing, might all be referrals coming through. There's a lot of other ways that businesses generate income than just what is kind of public facing.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think the key thing really is that there is no sort of one solution to this, is there? There's no one process that you can go through that will, magically show you what your target audience is or should be. And I think, looking at your competitors is useful. Like you said, Hannah, it's really good for being able to identify, well, why, nobody's targeting, there's all these competitors that I've got. None of them are targeting women in their 40s, but maybe there's a really good reason for that. Maybe they've done an awful lot of research and realized that they're not the buyers for this particular product. So, use it as an informant, but take everything with a pinch of salt. I just want us to quickly talk about analytics platforms or analytics tools on platforms before we finish. So, obviously we've got Google Analytics. So if you're talking about a purely web-based approach, you can look at that. All of the social media platforms now have different analytics. So obviously this is useful if you're coming at it from a digital point of view. How useful are those tools generally in helping you form your picture of your target audience?
I think becoming less so. So as we think about GDPR and cookies and GA4, Google Analytics 4 coming out, I think the data that we're going to start seeing through people's websites is going to be less and less. And I do wonder how things like lead forensics or what's it called? Not hot shots. What's it called?
Hotjar.
Hotjar. Yeah, Hotjar. Yeah, heat jar. Hotjar. Like heat mapping where people on your website.
Warm jam.
I think this is going to be. I think these sorts of businesses are going to be getting short shrift as well in the next few years as we tighten up on privacy and like the right to use the internet without being tracked so much.
There's a massive clap down on data protection and things recently, isn't there? So
yeah, so I do wonder really how useful this data is, or how much data there's going to be. Plus, like Dali said, you can't always think your website, and it does kind of make me sad to say this, being digital marketers, but your website's not the be all and end all of your marketing.
No, it's a tool in your arsenal, isn't it? And, to be fair, we have always said that. Dali, go on.
I think the other thing as well is that understanding what's happening on your website right now, looking at demographics and things like that will only tell you who's coming on your website at the moment. It will, is your website actually converting the whole breadth of the demographic of the different kind of audiences that are landing on your website, or is it only a very small percentage of those that is actually converting? Does it ever convert any of them? If it never converts anybody on your website, then you could argue that
some work to do.
Well, yeah, you could argue you've got some work to do, but you probably argue that reviewing the audience figures might actually lead you in completely the wrong way, in the wrong direction. And likewise, if you've got a website that's very heavy in terms of kind of knowledge-based content versus the percentage of products or services you've got listed on there, then it might be that it might be completely the wrong audience because you've actually just cast your net really wide in order to attract more people to the website.
I'm conscious of time. Time is marching on. So I just very quickly, what we've talked about already is looking at your existing customer base and figuring out who they are, looking at your past customer base, who are they, looking at where you want to get to, who you think your ideal customers are, using metrics and analytics and tools and everything online. And basically it is going to be about using all of these different strands and tools and pulling them together and your best guess judgment and all the rest of it to create this sort of ideal hypothesis of your ideal customers. How useful are creating buyer personas? Very quickly, do we think people should do that? And if they should, how many? I mean, I know businesses that have come to us with like 15 buyer personas. How useful is that?
But buyer personas can be useful. I often think that buyer personas are most useful if you've got a larger organization and you need to get buy-in from different groups, and you need to create a way for people to understand what's actually going on, understand the kind of strategy, especially if you're dealing with like a big number of salespeople, and the marketing team uses those to interplay between them, and to maybe as part of the training. They're valuable, but it depends on the business, because if you've got an e-commerce website selling tens of thousands of products, then you are going to have a lot of buyer personas potentially. You might not, you might just have a few, but it's in all likelihood you'd have a lot of them. And then it's probably not very valuable to have all of those buyer personas worked up. But for most businesses where there's one or two kind of target audiences that can be segmented out into kind of personas, then maybe it is valuable.
I don't see the point in them, really. I mean, I'm not from a marketing background, and I've just always struggled with, like, I get them to a certain level, like, where are they? What job do they do? What are their affinity groups and stuff? But in terms of, like, what's the name and what do they do at the weekend? If it's not relevant, like,
and again, it's that type of content, isn't it? That you've got a marketing department, they're going to create all of these lovely buyer personas and blah blah. Spend a lot of time on them. No bugger else in the business is actually going to read that or pay the slightest bit of attention to it.
Well,
so,
I'll just roll that back, because I have been in environments where buyer personas have worked particularly well, and the whole business understands and refers to the personas by name when they're talking about how that customer is just like Penny or whatever it is.
Yeah, okay. So if you're going to do them, make sure they're implemented and they're rolled out, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so
buyer personas, sorry, where the personas themselves form part of the marketing, like the outbound marketing, like, be like Dennis or whatever, or
that's true.
Ryan, or are you a Carly? And like, that it's worked. But I think as well, they do sometimes enforce unconscious bias and stereotypes, and I think they can be a bit sticky sometimes.
Definitely.
I mean, we could do a whole episode on buyer personas, actually, couldn't we? So I'll put that into the content calendar.
Unconscious bias in marketing.
Yeah.
Buyer personas are more specific than target audience. So
they are.
Lay it down.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so there we go. So I'm just Liz has just made a comment saying that the best one that she saw was an agency that had a collection of Mr. and Mrs. Potato Heads, and they used those to create their buyer personas. So there you go. That's good.
I recognize that.
You could have Barbies or Ken dolls or whatever. Nursery. Yeah. But this is it. So the key takeaway on this one, as I said, we haven't started off with kind of 5 top tips, but because there isn't a defined path for this. There isn't this is how you do it. Step 1, step 2. To build out find out who your ideal customer is. It's really a process that you're going to have to go through. You're going to have to continually revise it. You're going to have to continually keep interrogating it and seeing if it still holds true. But it's a case of looking at your customer base now, your past customer base, the one that you want in the future, your products and services, look at your online metrics, combine it all. And above all, talk to people. You've got to keep that conversation going with your customers to get those touch points of what they like about you, why they came to you, where they came from, why they stayed, all of that stuff. And over time, you will be able to build up this picture. Hannah, final piece of advice for people trying to build up their ideal customer base.
Use data, but be really critical with it.
Okay, good. Dali?
Similar point, really. Don't approach it thinking that you already understand who your potential audiences are.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and mine again very similar, but I would say don't just rely on one platform. Don't just rely on your assumptions of who comes through the door or who you speak to on the phone or whatever, because it will be wider than that and it will be more diverse, and people will come from places you weren't expecting. So make sure you are including all of your channels and all of your audience. And as Hannah said before, you know, thinking about those people who they might be your end customer, but who actually made that buyer decision. That might be the person you weren't expecting. So consider all of the angles, basically. That's it. Thank you very much, you two. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. And as I said before, I haven't done a content calendar because I'm a very naughty girl. So I don't know what we'll be talking about. But,
even when you have done a content calendar, we never know what we're talking about.
We never know. No, we find out last minute. Thank you very much for listening along. If you're watching this on catch up, please do still leave us a comment or ask us a question, because we still carry on watching it. If you're listening on podcast, like and rate and subscribe and tell people about us. And if you are watching it on YouTube, subscribe below. And also we are formulating a new Grow Traffic podcast, which will supplement these GTFO sessions. So more news on that soon, but keep your eye out if you're a podcast fan. That's it. Thank you very much. I'm off to go and brave this horrendous storm Ian now. There we go. Lots of rain.
Have fun.
Thank you. Bye.